To who?
Okay, folks. Looks like this is a party crowd tonight. Wow. I wish I sold tickets. I've got a real quick announcement to make on account of time. I will be brief about it. The South Rockdale Civic Association passed a resolution. The resolution is too long to try to read it tonight. I was hoping maybe that the media in attendance might have a chance to publish it for us. In regard to the closing of the entrance to the state park on 155 and moving it to Alexander Lake Road, we are in agreement with the Department of Natural Resources in many aspects of that. We would like to be more of a participant in the planning stage along with them before the master plan has actually come about. So if maybe one of the media folks tonight could be kind enough to let us publish our resolution in the paper to elicit help from our community. There will be a community meeting held by DNR as well as South Rockdale. So keep watching for listings and notices in the paper. It will improve the quality of life for all of us if we participate in our government before actions are taken, not afterwards. I'll turn the meeting back over to John Hammond as your moderator.
All right, thank you, Don. All right, I guess this is where the rubber meets the road now. No pun intended there. All right, everyone knows this is for the sheriff's position, and we'll start our 2-minute openings, and we'll let Mr. Levitt begin.
Good evening. My name is Eric Levitt. Of course, you know I'm running for the office of sheriff of Rockdale County. I am currently a resident of Rockdale County. As you know, I've been a resident for 39 years, almost 40 years in a couple of days. Glad to see that. Lord, the Lord, I'll be 40. I am married, been married for 16 years. I have 2 wonderful children, Christian and Colin, ages 9 and 4. They are currently enrolled in the Rockdale County Public Schools. One of them, the other one is in one of the local daycares here. I've been in law enforcement for approximately 20 years. Most of my years is with the Rockdale Sheriff's Office. I've had an opportunity to work for a couple of police agencies. So I've had an opportunity to work for police chiefs and for a couple of sheriffs. I have a simple platform, and that platform is safety, accountability, and professionalism. I want to pledge to you that I plan to make sure that our deputies and the county, the citizens, receive the utmost safety so we can reduce the crime. Crime, of course, is one of the most concerns that I have here, that I've seen here, that is increasing in Rockdale County over the last 8 years, perhaps almost 10 years. One of the things I pledge to do is to make sure that our deputies have the tools and the equipment and the resources in order to reduce that crime. I also pledge to make sure that we have our local town hall meetings. That our local town hall meetings go with the accountability. Why should we have local town hall meetings? Because I should be held accountable for my actions. I want you as citizens to come to me and tell me, what are we doing? What can we do to improve? What are we doing right? What are your concerns in your community? Also, I pledge to implement crime mapping, the crime mapping system. The purpose of the crime mapping system, as far as accountability, that will make sure that we target the areas where the crime is increasing. We will deploy the manpower, the tools, and the equipment in those areas to decrease that crime. And as far as professionalism, I plan to make sure that we increase our training, that we make sure that we bridge the gap between the judicial system and the Board of Commissioners office so we can work together. Those are just a few of the highlights that I have for my platform. But I want to encourage you, on September the 8th, I have implemented my crime safety plan on my website. And I want to encourage you to go to that website, which is www.levittforsheriff.com. On that website it will show you the rest of my plans, the rest of the bullets to my plan that I have for Rockdale County. And again, I'm Eric Levitt, running for the office of Sheriff of Rockdale County, and I want to earn your support and your vote. Thank you.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Hi, I'm Jeff Wigington. I'm the sheriff now, and I have been for the last 16 years, and I know most of you, and very few faces I don't recognize. But I started with the sheriff's office when I was 17 years old as a radio operator, and I've been there ever since. So a total of 35 years, 16 as the sheriff. I met my wife Beth at the sheriff's office. We have 3 sons. One's a U.S. Marine, one is a state trooper, and one works for a construction company. Eventually wants to be a fireman. This is my church. This is where I've been going since I was 1 year old, so I feel very comfortable here. And that was 52 years ago, I might add. So I'm 53, and I can't retire yet. So some people think 35 years you ought to be retiring. I can't. I'm too young. I would say that I'm by far the most experienced candidate, but not only me, but my command staff. And they're all here tonight. I have 6 captains, and if you add up their total years experience, they have 174 years of law enforcement. If you add me into that, that's 209 years that the 7 of us have in law enforcement. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and public administration, and I also have a master's degree in public administration. As far as training and education goes, I think we're actually a leader in the community. Since I've taken office, we've sent our deputies to over 300,000 hours of training. And all you have to do is go to the Georgia Post website to get that. That's not my numbers, that's the Post website numbers. I think one thing, though, about being sheriff is we do have very good equipment. Unfortunately, our salaries for our deputies are not what they ought to be, and they're really not for any of the county employees because they haven't had a raise in 5 years. But I also understand that these are tough economic times, and we have to do everything that we can. And we all know that, yes, salary is a big motivator, but it's not the only motivator. You have to give them good equipment and take care of them and do things like that. We have lots of deputies that over the years have thought the grass was greener and they've left, and most or not maybe not most, but a lot of them have come back. We actually have 2 people that have left within the last 6 months, and 2 of them won't come back. But again, in tough economic times, I think we have to be fiscally responsible. And what I did this past year is I returned $900,000 back to the county. The year before that, every county employee lost 3 furlough days except the sheriff's office and the water department, and that's because I used my budget money to pay for those 3 work days that they would have lost. So I hope you'll vote for me on November 6th.
All right. First question. Who's got the first question tonight? Okay. Let's try and make sure we keep these to 30-second questions.
This is for Mr. Levitt. Sir, what is your vision for the sheriff's office, and how is it different from the current administration?
Well, one of the things that I hear a lot of complaints on routine is that a lot of people who has moved here doesn't know the sheriff, don't know what the sheriff looked like. I plan to be in uniform 90% of the time. I plan to be in the community. I plan to go up and knock on your doors. Again, as I implemented earlier, I plan to have town hall meetings in various districts of the county. Did I miss the second part?
Right, I want to know what your difference was. Do you have a vision of what is yours? Is it different from the sheriff's, the current sheriff's vision?
What am I not doing?
One of the things that I feel that how I would be different is I'm a hands-on person. I make sure that I interact with the deputies. I make sure that I stay close to them, communicate with them, and not only them, but with the citizens once again. Again, that's one of the complaints that we hear not only on the inside, but on the outside.
All right, Mr. Parker.
And did I get to respond to that?
Oh, yes, Jeff, you did. I'm sorry.
Okay. You know, I've been doing this a long time, and I made a conscious effort many years ago to purposely not wear a uniform except for certain occasions and things like that, because I think you actually have a more professional demeanor or appearance if you're wearing a coat and tie or whatever. So that's actually a choice that I've made. Now, for certain occasions, I do wear a uniform. I wore one on September 11th when there were ceremonial things like that. I don't think the uniform makes the person. I think the person makes the person. You know, I've always been involved with my deputies. I think the captains that are here tonight will tell you that my concern is for those deputies, and a lot of things that I do may be unnoticed by a lot because, you know, I run around and brag about everything you do, but at the same time, you know, I've always been very involved. I'm probably the only elected official, and I'm not trying to dog any of y'all out there out here, that still has a phone number in the book. So my home phone number is listed in the book, and it's always been, I've never had an unlisted phone number. I regularly give my cell phone out. I have an open door policy. People can come see me anytime they want to.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Got one right here.
Yeah, I just want a yes or no. Yes or no on this one. Do both of you believe, or either one of you believe, that the 911 should have been a bidding process, transparent to the vendor for the 911? Mr. Lutcher?
When you say vendor,
The vendor. Now you're gonna be confused. For the company that got it, do you believe it should have been bidded out?
yes.
I have no problem with that. Unfortunately, I'm not in
Okay.
control.
Okay, let me get, and I think most of this is Jeff, to you. When you had 911,
I never had 911.
the sheriff department had 911,
When Guy Norman was sheriff.
huh?
When Guy Norman was the sheriff, we had.
All right, guy, no. But do you know that the funds for 911, were they part of the sheriff budget?
Never.
Never. Do you know where that budget is, that money?
Well, what I believe you're referring to is 911 has a separate revenue fund.
Revenue, right.
That has to be separated no matter who controls it. But when the sheriff's office had 911 years and years ago, I assumed the sheriff's office maintained that account, but it always had to be separated from other monies. Now, that's currently under the fire department, and that, somebody's ringing here. That money has to stay separate from any other account. And the finance department does that, but the fire department controls that account.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at, the 911 fund, the state revenue department gives us, the Rockdale County, $1.4 million a year. This has been going on for a long time. Now, the SPOS program just gave $4-point-something million to the 911. I'm just trying to figure what happened to all, we cannot find out.
You're asking the wrong folks, neither one of
You
us
don't
have
know.
a clue about
Okay,
that.
All right, anyone else? Questions? Yes, ma'am.
I didn't want to cut Eric off, but I don't think either one of us have an answer for that.
Well, let me answer this real quick. Should 911 come under the sheriff's department?
Absolutely. We're in agreement.
I'm not sure I know how to ask this question because it's about the name Levitt being all over my ballot. It seems like Levitt's running for everything, owns bail bond company and, and funeral home. It seems like there's just maybe a conflict of interest there, perhaps?
Well, unfortunately, we don't choose our career path. I chose to be a law enforcement many years ago. My uncle chose to be a funeral director many years ago. We didn't get together to plan to run. As a matter of fact, we don't even sit around the table to discuss who's going to run for what. This has always been in my heart. It's always been a passion for me, and this has always been a goal for me. So that's the reason why I chose to run for the office of sheriff.
And let me just say, the Levitts have been in this community many years. I worked with Eric's grandfather, very good people. I do think if Eric were to be elected, though, his uncle would probably not be able to be in the bonding business, so that would probably keep any conflict from occurring.
And I have no problem in making sure that goes away. I'm a fair person. I do everything equally. And again, I think that falls upon accountability.
Back in the back.
Okay. Mr. Levitt, on your website, you have a list of things that you're, looking to do to improve the sheriff's office. Sheriff's Department. And one of them is, I think, like Kevlar vest and, you know, some additional like weapons and things. I don't remember exactly what. But would you tell us what it is you're looking at doing? And then what kind of cost are we looking at?
Well, I can't exactly give you the total cost or exact cost, but we always can use improved weapons, improved equipment. And when you're talking about the cost, I realize that, you know, we have a budget, and I realize that the budget is allocated on the equipments and the things that we purchase. However, we also have drug forfeiture money, and we can utilize some of that money to purchase these items.
Well, have you looked at what, done any estimations or calculations, and what kind of experience do you have in taking care of a budget? Or what's the largest budget that you've ever maintained or managed?
Well, I've never, you know, I'll be honest, I don't have any experience in maintaining a budget. I have, in the PMP program that we took through Columbus State University, there was a budget class that we took. Again, I can surround myself with the qualified and educated people where we all can come to a decision in managing the budget. I have to refer back to the sheriff. When the sheriff ran for the office of sheriff, he was a lieutenant. I'm not sure if he had budget experience either. This was something that you learn as you go into that position.
My turn. Eric's right. I was a lieutenant for 15 years before I ran for sheriff. But at that time, the budget was a lieutenant. For example, I was actually the uniform division commander as a lieutenant. So I did do part of that budget process. But, you know, I also have a college degree that has some financial accounting involved in that. I have looked at that. Many of the things that Eric's website says, such as replacing all the bullet-resistant vests, replacing all the handguns, things like that, we're already doing. A bullet-resistant vest has a 5-year shelf life. We replace 1/5 of ours every year. So therefore, you're not getting hit all at once. If you come in on day one and you replace all the vests, then 5 years from now, you've got a huge expense again. So it makes a lot more sense to buy 1/5 of those, and every 5 years you've rotated your stock. That's what we do now. There's some talk about handguns in there. We carry the Glock 40 caliber pistol. That's what 90% of all law enforcement agencies carry. I personally see no need in changing that. But there's a lot of things in there. I think one thing, for example, was Eric's going to start an SRT team, Special Response Team. Well, we already have a SWAT team. They're exactly the same thing. So we kind of did some numbers, and I think it's somewhere around a 22% increase in an $18 million budget if you add all of the different programs that the website covers.
That was good. I'm sorry.
Let me respond to that. I'm not saying that we're going to increase the manpower for that. What I'm saying, when I put that on my website, we currently have a task force, and he's right, we have a SWAT team. But if you can bond all of them together, you can have an SRT team that can handle the things that I've named on my website. So it's just a matter of us bringing them all together to become that one unit. I also mentioned about implementing a drug interdiction unit. Once again, they can also tag along with that same unit to receive the training to combat the things that I named on that website.
And that's actually a difference. I don't want a drug interdiction unit because if you look at the history of drug interdiction units, they profile. And I don't want to be a part of profiling.
All right. Don has a question. Right. Don, come to you.
This is Mr. Levitt. Will you be choosing a chief deputy And have you picked someone for that position, and what cost that add to our budget?
I have considered a chief deputy, and I have 3 people in mind. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question?
What would the cost per chief deputy?
Well, that's something, I think it'll be based upon that person's experience. Of course, you start with the salary that's the starting salary for that chief deputy, but I think it'll be based upon the experience and the training that that person possesses.
And those 3 people currently deputies in Rockdale County?
Absolutely
If you
not.
would please talk into the microphone.
The 3 persons in consideration are members of the Rockdale County Sheriff's Department now.
Absolutely not, and I've purposely done that.
They will not be from Rockdale County? You say the chief deputy will not be from the Rockdale County force?
No,
You will pick from outside of Rockdale County?
that's correct.
My
Well,
only
when I say I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Now, when you say Rockdale County, I'm not talking about the county, but from the sheriff's office, they will not be from the sheriff's office.
And I would just comment that, I personally do not intend to have a chief deputy. There is a position in the sheriff's office budget for one, and I have chosen not to fill that just because I want to be involved. I want to be a hands-on sheriff. I don't want somebody else running the department for me.
Deputy Levitt, this is directed toward you. In reading in your website, you mentioned about the SRT team, you mentioned about drug enforcement, you mentioned about task force, and those type things. Now, in an article written in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on August the 22nd by Rhonda Cook, those same things and almost exact words were mentioned about Victor Hill of Clayton County. If we elect you, are we electing another Victor Hill?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Because I'm very concerned about that because of what you've talked about your chief deputy not coming from within the department. And what Mr. Hill did, or Sheriff Hill, past Sheriff Hill did, in Clayton County, with coming in and terminating 27 employees right off the bat. Are we as taxpayers going to face a situation like that in Rockdale County?
I'm glad that you mentioned about termination. If anybody who knows me, they know that I'm a fair person. I do treat people equally. I know this is hard economic times for people, and I don't believe in firing anyone unless you committed violations of the policy that was so gross that you need to be fired, or you violated the law. I think people need their jobs, so I have no intentions in myself nor a chief deputy coming in and firing anyone. But there's a difference. I'm not Victor Hill, and I did not agree with what Victor Hill did, and I wasn't a supporter of him, and I'm not a supporter of him now.
And it's hard to plug your opponent, but Eric's a good guy. If he wasn't, he wouldn't work for me now. And I don't compare him. I just wish he wasn't running against me. Yes, ma'am.
I have been getting a lot of complaints about some of the people that work for you of color. That they don't get, you don't give them raises, or you don't put them in bigger positions. So do they have to be qualified to get those positions, or do they just, how do you do that? Because that's the only thing I have been getting complaints about.
Right.
That a lot of them want to run against you because they have not gotten.
We actually have, and I know in one of the previous debates tonight, there was talk about nepotism. We actually have a nepotism policy, and we have for many, many years. But we also have a promotional policy that I implemented right after I came in. And everyone has to test for, the first rank in our department is corporal, the second is sergeant. We're very slim down when it comes to rank. We have corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. Captains are division commanders. There's only 6 of them. The captain with the least experience has 20 years, and that's that group of 6 people I told you about before that has so much experience. We have Once you make it to sergeant, then you're appointed to lieutenant. And what we talked about just a moment ago about people having to worry about being fired in the Rockdale County Sheriff's Office, to Sheriff Vic Davis's credit, in 1984, the Rockdale County Sheriff's Merit Board was created, and the only person the sheriff can fire without cause or demote without cause is anyone above captain can be terminated without cause. The rank of captain can be demoted one rank back to lieutenant. Lieutenant and below, nothing can happen to them without cause. So whoever comes in as sheriff is stuck with who they have unless they are not able to do the job. So from the deputy's perspective, they're all protected by that. However, we do have people in law enforcement. It's kind of like other agencies. We don't bring people in to higher positions. For some agencies do, but I've never done that and I never will, where you hire someone in from another agency at a higher rank over other people. I don't think that's the way to do it. I think you should earn your way up. You should do your time and get promoted based on your time, your experience, your education, things of that nature.
Anyone else?
This question is for Sheriff Wigginton. I have to drive around in Rockdale County quite a bit, and I'm very impressed with, I can never go anywhere without seeing sheriff vehicles out there. And it helps me feel very safe. But a concern that I've noticed is there seem to be, not that familiar with vehicles, but just flashy kind of vehicles that I'm seeing. I've seen a Z car, and I think with the economic conditions as they are, how does this make sense?
Next time you see that car, look on the trunk. It says this car was purchased by a drug dealer. We have two fancy cars. One is a Dodge Challenger that we bought with drug money. The other is a Nissan 350Z that the DEA actually seized from a drug dealer. And we converted that, took it and had it painted and put blue lights on it. And I did that on purpose, and if you re-elect me, I'm going to use some of that money and I'm going to buy another flashy car at some point. And the purpose of that is for them to take them to schools and let young people see this nice fancy car, and on the back of it, it basically says this car was bought by a drug dealer. So, I actually think that's a deterrent and something that is good, because it has several things. Young people see those cars and they think that's cool, and they think that deputy that's driving that car, that breaks the ice, and those kids talk to that deputy. And that's what a lot of it is about, is getting young people to not grow up disliking law enforcement, but being able to go talk to them, even if it's about their car.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any more questions? Yes, sir. We may have a meeting part of the way home. I believe I can reach that here.
Did you have a comment on that?
I'm sorry. We have a comment.
You know, I was thinking about your question. I've had that addressed to me several times, and people ask me that same question. And he's right. One of the cars that we do have is seized from a drug dealer. And one of the cars that we have is purchased by drug seizure money. But if you ask me what I would have done with it, it is a good idea to have those type of cars to send a message to the drug dealers. This is what we're going to do to your items that you're using drug money, drugs for. And it sends a message to the children. But we also have vehicles on the road that has almost 200,000 miles on it, and deputies needing vehicles that's going to get them from point A to point B. Me personally, now, if I could utilize that drug money to purchase vehicles for undercover CID units, and perhaps even for marked cars, regular Crown Vics, or cars to patrol in, I would do that with that money.
Every one of our undercover cars is a seized car. We have not bought a car and used it for undercover purposes. The car I drive, or the SUV I drive, has 160,000 miles on it, and it's a 05 model. And most chiefs and sheriffs get a new car every year, but mine's 6 years old, 7 years old. And let me, one more comment. And drug money or seized assets, the law is very clear, they cannot supplant the county budget. In other words, you can't use that money to pay for things that the county should be already buying. And that's what we talked about at the commission this morning.
Mr. Levitt, not to be a dead horse, but on the deputy sheriff,
Chief Deputy.
chief deputy, yes. Would that, you say, that person would be not from the current sheriff's department, could be from Rockdale County, but would that person be over and supervise the captains and lieutenants?
Yes.
And so that one would not be under any criteria. You would be hiring from without the department, not within, for all the experience that you have already.
That's correct. Now, this is a personal choice. This is my choice, and I'm going to tell you why I was trying not to go there. Oftentimes, we talked about earlier with the post one, and we talked about it a little bit here under the sheriff's office, about nepotism. Oftentimes, you have too many friendships within the sheriff's office, where people seem to not feel that they're fairly disciplined, and that you have inappropriate relationships. I believe in bringing in a chief deputy because from outside the sheriff's office, so they won't have that personal relationship with the deputies, and that we can continue to do things fairly and equal. So that's the reason why I would bring someone from the outside in. I am a family man, number one, and I'm a fair and equal man, as I stated several times. And I believe in doing things right and doing things fair. And again, I stated to you about my accountability platform. And I will hold not only myself, but any command staff of mine accountable for their actions. And not only the command staff, but the first line supervisor and deputies accountable. So that's the reason, another reason why I would bring in a chief deputy.
And I would suggest we keep our people accountable already. Thank you.
This is for both candidates. With Ford discontinuing the Crown Vic, and with fuel prices going up and up, I'd like to know how you're going to spend our tax money for patrol cars and what you're going to use to put on the road in the next 4 years.
Well, I thought about that, and I'm currently assigned to the Criminal Investigation Division for now. I drive a Ford Explorer, and at the time when the economy was good, that's fine. It's a V8 vehicle, and yes, it uses a lot of gas. But for the type of work that we do and the traveling that we do, I've considered anything from a Ford Fusion to something of that measure. As far as Criminal Investigation Division, as far as Uniform Division, you have to use the vehicles that is equipped for police package vehicles. With the Crown Vic going, it's phasing out. One of the vehicles that are used now that I think that'll be feasible for the sheriff's office is I think it's a Charger, and that's one of the things that I will look at.
We actually just tested the Charger, the Chevrolet Caprice, the Ford Interceptor, just in the last couple of weeks, just to see how they compare, because I'm actually mad at Ford because they discontinued the Crown Vic because it was probably the safest police car or sheriff's car out there. And unfortunately, these newer cars are very fast compared to the Crown Vic. The Crown Vic's like a tank. If you have a wreck, you usually do pretty good. I'm really worried about young deputies being in these cars that have superchargers and turbochargers and everything else. But they're very fast and they're very nice. The thing about the Ford Explorers, like Eric's talking about, the reason that I chose to buy something other than a traditional Crown Victoria for CID is because sometimes even though they're technically not in an undercover capacity, they don't need, if they drive up in a Crown Vic with antennas all over, everybody knows who they are. So there was a purpose for buying something other than a Crown Vic, and I stick by that and think it was a good decision. One reason that we did the V8s is because the Explorer has the exact same engine that the police vehicle has. Therefore, you're only buying one type of oil filter, one type of whatever. So there's a lot of thought goes into stuff that sometimes don't come out, but that's the reason that we tried to stay with the same type of fleet and all that. Now, Ford did that to themselves, and we have no choice now but to go in a different direction.
So what are you looking at for the next 4 years? Have you settled on something?
We have not. But I can tell you, every one of them is faster than the big Crown Vic that we got right now. And I would say, please put this in the papers or whatever, I will not put my people in Fusions because they're gonna all walk out tomorrow if they think they're gonna start driving Ford Fusions as police vehicles.
Don't put them in smart cars.
All right, Don, you have a question?
I have a question in regard to traffic. This is a serious note. It's not a laughable moment. I have said at the Board of Commissioners that I'm concerned about this, and I hate to make a statement tonight, but on Grenade Road at Heritage High School, as you go toward the winter months now, the dark mornings, the rainy dark mornings, the foggy windshields, the students are walking to school from Sugar Hill, Cherry Hill, whatever that is, coming down Grenade Road, they're not seeing. The grass is high, the grass is wet, and the students are walking in the street. Don't blame them a bit, I'd be there too. The students assume the cars are going to move over, but the cars see somebody coming, they don't see them, so they hug the shoulder closer. We are going to have a calamity on Grenade Road. That's one thing. We need a sidewalk.
We need a sidewalk.
Need a sidewalk. But in lieu of that, in this time during the day, when students get out of school in the afternoon from 2:45 to about 3:15, Grenade Road is locked down. Traffic cannot traverse from 138 down Grenade Road to Smyrna Road. People are having to go across the double yellow lines to get around it. So we're going to have a calamity there as well because people are pulling out of Lockenberg, they're pulling out of Heritage Heights, and they're not seeing the oncoming traffic because those people are hitting the gas real fast to come out of that traffic line trying to get from 138 to Smyrna Road. You're going to have a calamity. I would like to see you guys answer the question, what are you going to do about that traffic issue, both in the mornings until the Board of Commissioners gets the sidewalk out there, or somebody does, to help protect those students? We got a problem.
Want me to go first?
You're the sheriff for now.
All right.
You gotta work on that, I'm sure soon.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, there's not enough deputies to go around, so we can't have someone there every single morning. That would probably, even if you had a deputy at one particular point every morning, it wouldn't fix the problem. So, I mean, just by as much enforcement as we can possibly put out there and working with the Department of Transportation to, eventually probably widen Grenade Road with sidewalks and maybe even sidewalks down 138. But those are all engineering problems that we really can't address. But just increased enforcement as much as we can and hope nothing bad happens.
Did a good job on 138.
Well, and the problem with Grenade is it's such a tight area. You can run radar on it, but moving radar is when the deputy is moving. Stationary is when he's sitting on the side of the road. There's really not many good places for them to sit to catch people go by. So, I mean, there's some challenges with that.
Afternoon traffic right now is a secondary problem.
Well, and fortunately, the afternoon's better because of visibility, if nothing else, and probably a little less traffic. All right, you want to finish this too next time?
I think, one of the ways, I'm gonna be the bad guy here, one of the ways to help relieve some of that tension there is you have a principal. And if that's a concern for you, then it most certainly should be a concern for the principal, because if you're saying that he should see it and he should work with the school resource office work with the school crossing guard. But between the sheriff's office and the principal, we should work together and try to come up with a plan to relieve that traffic. Now, if you go to the elementary schools, you're going to see teachers and middle schools, you're gonna see teachers outside helping, moving, making sure the kids quickly get in their vehicles and moving that traffic along. And when you have high schoolers, they like to talk, they like to hold up traffic, they don't have any, a lot of them don't have a lot of respect for people that's behind you. And so you're gonna have to get the adults out there to push them along.
This is the problem. It is the adults picking up students that have blocked the highway all the way up to 138. It is the parents that are blocking the highway. And my wife and I had a 1 hour and 15-minute meeting with Dr. Sam King and Mr. Autry last year, and we addressed about 10 issues, and that was one of the key issues. It was supposed to have been rerouting the traffic once they finished construction on Heritage to the backside of the school. They have not done it. So the school board knows exactly the criteria. Every chief of staff was with Mr. King, and Mr. Autry were there at that meeting. And they promised to fix it. They have not. What we have is a future calamity of loss of life on that road. It is a moment, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So at this point in time, I would say that whoever the elected is, if you work closely with the school board and whoever, because you guys will be cleaning up the mess. I'm sorry.
And I will make a comment that the deputies have patrolled very well when we brought it to their attention, the neighborhood, and have helped. But it goes back to somehow getting the school board to do something about it. And if we could have any help whatsoever, working with the school board to get them to do something about that issue.
And we do have a good working relationship with the school system and the resource officers, and we can work on that too.
Anyone else?
I just have a question on that topic of schools. I drive around Rockdale County in the mornings when the school lights are flashing, in the afternoon when the school lights are flashing. And I can't tell you how many people, when I'm slow down at 25 miles an hour, and there's a car in the second lane at 25 miles an hour, and we're about that far apart, how many cars will speed through the two of us to get by and speed through that? And I had a good friend back in my hometown whose daughter was killed right in front of them while they were on one side of the street when a school bus was actually stopped with its red thing out, and a truck went around and killed her on the spot. And I'd just like to know what we can do to improve that situation, to people take seriously what that 25 mile an hour speed zone light is for.
Go ahead, sir.
You gonna make me answer them all?
Okay. I mentioned earlier about utilizing the tools, equipment, and resources. And I'm gonna say it like this because I've said it in a joking manner to them, and I've said it to them in a serious manner. But I think that, right now we have a motorcycle unit of 2, and from my understanding, it's down to 1. We have approximately 4 or 5 motorcycles that we could be utilizing to also run radar in the school district more often, along with the special operations team that we have, instead of spending a whole lot of time on Georgia 20 South. And the reason I mention that is because I hear a lot of complaints on that, and people are always asking me, why your cars always spending a lot of time on Georgia 20 South? So first of all, they're not my cars. And, but I can't answer that. I say,
or you work there.
I'm not over him though. And I say something to those units, and like I said, in a joking manner and in a serious manner about why do y'all spend a lot of time on Georgia 20. So again, you have to utilize the tools and resources and equipment necessary in order to tackle the traffic in those school zones.
We actually have quite a bit of equipment. We do have 5 motorcycles. 3 of them are older and used for escorts and things like that. 2 of them are fairly new. 1 of them is currently not being ridden because the deputy had a wreck and got injured and decided he didn't want to ride anymore. So we're looking for someone else that wants to ride. If you want to volunteer to ride a motorcycle every day, come see me. But we do have radar trailers that we put in speed zones or in school zones and things like that. I know you've heard mention speed humps. You really can't do that on a thoroughfare. It can only be used on a street that is not considered a thoroughfare. The one thing that I would tell people is, that you may or may not be aware of, is anytime we use radar or a speed detection device, we have to give you 10 miles per hour. The exception to that is in a school zone. In a school zone, if it says it's 25 miles an hour, you can get a ticket for going 26 miles an hour. Now, you're probably not going to get one for 1 mile over, but you could get one for 5 miles over versus giving you 10 or 11 or 12 miles an hour over. The other thing I would tell you, just for education, is the cities and counties are restricted by radar laws, and we have to give that 10 miles an hour except in school zones. The State Patrol is not bound by that, and they can give you a ticket for 1 mile over anywhere they want to. They can run radar in places that we can't legally run radar. They can hide behind trees and bushes because they don't profit from any money that's made, so therefore they're exempt from all the radar laws. So and this happens sometimes, we might have a subdivision or a school zone that we just can't run radar in at a particular place because we don't meet the criteria to be legally there to run radar. And we can call a state trooper and they can come do it for us, and we can write the tickets for them, and they run the radar and it makes it legal. So there are things that we can do to address those problems.
That's a good idea, Jim.
And I have an in with the State Patrol, my son's one. A motorcycle trooper, I might add.
Anyone else? If not, I've got the last question.
Let's go on.
Yeah. Jeff, as you know, this past April, I experienced someone stealing my pickup truck out of my driveway underneath my bedroom window. And anybody in here that drives a pickup knows you don't mess with a man's pickup truck. But, however, I wanted to know, do we have, or can we implement some sort of a system to set up vehicles intentionally to catch criminals stealing vehicles? Because vehicle theft seems to be a big business nowadays.
You mean like a bait car?
Baiting a car.
I watched a bait car at 3 o'clock this morning. I'm all up on bait car. I'm really bait. Anyway, the problem with that is they're not taken from a particular area. Now, you know, I think the city, and Scott, you can nod your head, I think the city's done some sting operations, and I know we have in a couple of shopping centers and places like that, but unfortunately, like yours was taken from a residential area that, you know, we would have no way of knowing, because I think you may have had one stolen there previously years ago.
I've had one completely stolen and 7 attempts.
He's in a high crime area. Not really, he's on a dead end street. He shouldn't be having a problem, but he has many nice vehicles as his problem. Johnny and I went to school together.
Jeff and I have known each other for 53 years. Any more questions? One more, last question.
Did you want to respond?
Oh, yes.
Actually,
My question mainly is if we had anything, system, or could we implement a system to do that, but if you say we're doing that already.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to be ugly, but low jack, there are things like that, that if your vehicle is taken, there are ways to get that back. We have cars that are equipped with the low jack transponders or receivers that, and that's the way we actually identified a chop shop, 3 weeks ago.
You see my white truck, did you?
A deputy riding around got a low jack hit, went to the place, looked in the window, ran the tag on a car that was stolen the night before. And we ended up getting 4 engines, 5 transmissions, and 2 or 3 stolen cars out there. But low jack's a great thing, and I cut Eric off, so let me know.
bait car is something that company investigators, when I was just a slick sleeve investigator, we talked about, because entering auto and auto theft is one of the biggest crimes here in Little Burgers. I think back then there was some talk about a law where we probably couldn't do that. But being the size of our county, I don't know how effective that would be. But it's certainly an idea that we can look into and try. It's worth a try.
One more comment on that. Dealing with some of the technology we have, and a lot of agencies do now, a tag reader car. And if you may have seen it going around and you see the car and you think, what is all that junk on the trunk? But it has 3 different cameras mounted on the trunk of the car, and as it rides through a subdivision or just, I mean, you may see him parked out here at in the middle of the street or on Georgia 20 South. The deputy's just sitting there and you're thinking, he ought to be out doing something. He's running every single tag that goes past him. If cars go in both directions, if he drives through a shopping center, it runs every tag parked in the parking lot. And it doesn't run the tag to say, oh, this car belongs to Jeff Wigington. It runs the tag to just see if it's stolen or not. So we do have a tag reader car, and it's utilized every single day.
Does it ask if the owner of that car's got a warrant on it?
It can, and a lot of them, I mean, if we have the information to cross-reference the vehicle to the person, yes, it will. And we've made a lot of arrests that way.
Last question.
Okay, both of y'all I've grown up with. Y'all know I'm in the middle. What can you tell me to get my vote?
I think we should let that be our 2-minute closing statement. Go ahead, Jeff.
Want me to go first? All right. The difference is, not the difference. I think Eric's a good guy. If he wasn't, he wouldn't be working for me. Hopefully, I'm a good guy. So it's really not about who's the better guy. It's about who's the most experienced person. I've already told you I've been here my entire working career, 35 years. I've been the sheriff for 16. The Rockdale Sheriff's Office is in charge of emergency management. We're a part of the Metro Atlanta area. I was the chairman 2 terms, the vice chair, and I just currently rolled off of that for the Area 7 All Hazards Council. After 9/11, the governor created the Governor's Homeland Security Task Force. There is one sheriff, with the head of the State Patrol, the head of the GBI, the head of the National Guard, all the state agency heads. There's one sheriff and one police chief to represent all the sheriffs and all the chiefs of police. I'm the sheriff for the entire state of Georgia, so we're very well connected with Homeland Security. You know, unfortunately, in a job like this, it takes time to get to those positions, so the new guy starting out has to start all over. But we have lots and lots of programs and technologies, and I think we have an excellent sheriff's department. Some people have commented on the visibility tonight. I challenge you to go anywhere in this county and not see a patrol car. We have a take-home car program where the deputies can take their car home with them. Some think that might be wasteful. I suggest it's a very good crime deterrent if you got a neighbor that's a deputy, and also if we have something bad, a whole bunch of deputies can get in their car and come to work. So in the end, it's very cost effective, but it's also a very big crime deterrent. But I think the big difference in this race is just experience and who has done the job and has a proven track record. I try to be fair to every single person. You know, sometimes I do have to fire people or make decisions that some people don't like, but I can assure you I give that a lot of thought and I get no pleasure out of doing that. So it all comes down to experience, in my opinion, and I hope I can count on your vote. And I'm too young to retire, and I'd like to stick around a little longer. Thank you.
My answer is just simple, you know me.
That's why you gotta vote for me, Lisa.
Of course, you know I was born and raised here. I'm a family man. I'm family oriented. I'm, again, hands-on, and I believe in connecting with the people and connecting people with us. I believe in making sure that Rockdale is united as one. I feel that we are still kind of separated, and I think that it needs to be someone that can bring everyone together, and I think I can. As far as experience, I have experience too. Do I have as much experience as Sheriff Wiggins? Absolutely not. He's been with the county for 35 years. He's been a sheriff for 16 years. He's gained a lot of experience. You know, we grow with experience and we learn we get experience by learning. And I will continue to learn and continue to gain that experience just as he did. The biggest thing is, as far as earning your vote, again, I believe in having those town hall meetings, going back to if you will, Mayberry days, where the sheriff would get out and go to you. Yes, we have an open door policy. I will continue to have an open door policy, but who utilizes that open door policy? I need to come to you. I need to have these town hall meetings such as this, and for you to tell me your concerns, and you to tell me what we're doing right. That's called connecting, that's called communicating with the citizens. And I believe that I can bring that, being that the county has changed over the last 8 years. And we need someone that can show their face, and someone that can, again, connect with the people. And I hope that I can earn your support and your vote along with everyone else.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out here this evening. And just remember, these forums can't happen without each and every one of you. And if you're not a member of South Rockdale Civic Association, please see one of us about joining. We need the support, and